Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today I'm going to be continuing with our Imperial Guard Regiment videos with a look at the Valhallen Ice Warriors. Now the Valhallen Ice Warriors hail from the Imperial ice world of Valhalla, surprisingly, and they are famed for their tenaciousness in holding their ground against even the most hopeless odds and their ability to suffer the most appalling casualties without breaking. Now like many of the Guard's most iconic regiments, the Valhallans are shaped by their unique homeworld and the history of their founding. Now, long ago, Valhalla was a verdant paradise, but a comet impact knocked the planet out of orbit and actually altered its climate quite drastically, changing the world into a frozen ball of ice, where almost no plant or animal could survive above ground without protection. Now, the surviving population were forced underground, into caverns, which offered the only protection from the surface cold, with little access to any food or supplies due to the rapid onset freezing of the planet. Now what came next was known as the War of Survival. Now obviously the people of Valhalla struggled to survive after this crisis, and had to resort to producing food using extensive vats of nutrient-rich slime or paste. Now it took a long time and many did die of starvation, but eventually the Valhallans came up with enough of this paste in order to support their population, despite the fact I'm sure it wasn't very appetizing. However, as the threat of starvation receded, the planet was dealt another blow by the arrival of a damaged orc fleet in orbit. The orcs immediately landed and attacked the underground cities, raiding them for the little food and resources they had stored. Now, although holding out for a long time, the Valhallans were outnumbered, and were eventually pushed back to the vats where the last of their food was being grown. Now they took horrendous losses, but held the orcs off for long enough that the ice-melting tunnel digger machines could be brought round to face the orcs by the Valhallan engineers. They used these machines to flank the orcs, their fiery mechanisms burning through the tides of greenskins, cutting off the enemy's retreat and slaughtering them mercilessly, using both lasguns and their drilling machines. Because of their ingenuity and this holding action, the enemy forces were pushed off Valhalla, and the Valhallans reclaimed what little was left of their civilization, which continued on into the Imperium of Man. Since that time, the Valhallans have hated orcs over any other Xenos race, and have become especially adept at fighting them on many worlds throughout the Imperium regardless of their climate. Now, their planet's population continues to live in vast subterranean cities, since the sub-freezing temperatures of the surface make it uninhabitable. The Valhallan people are renowned across the Imperium for their stoic and determined natures, willing to achieve their goal whatever the cost, be that injury or death. Now, the Valhallan Ice Warriors, which is the name given to the guard regiments raised on Valhalla, are stoic and unwavering when on the defensive, holding the line when the odds are stacked against them, when many other regiments would have turned tail to flee. Many of the Ice Warriors' opponents have found often that Valhallan defending forces need to be completely destroyed to capture the ground that they hold, as they fight to the last guardsman to hold their ground. Now, Valhallans are also trained to fight in dense formations to support their morale, being close to their fellow Ice Warriors to support and be supported in the heat of battle. Now, when on the offensive, Valhallans combine massed artillery barrages with infantry wave assaults, essentially pounding the enemy into submission, using their extensive knowledge of combat in hostile conditions to overcome even the most entrenched enemy, especially on an ice world. Now, they are also supported by ministorum priests who bellow religious sermons and homilies during combat to inflame their righteous anger and to assault the enemy with even more fervour than a normal Imperial Guard regiment would do. Now, moving lastly onto their equipment, all the Valhallans are equipped with the standard issue lasgun and flak armour, but certain guardsmen are of course armed with special heavy weapons. Now, the Valhallans in this heavy weapons category favour flamers and mortars, which are useful against enemies in confined spaces like the tunnel cities on Valhalla, or over long distances out of line of sight, such as in the frozen wastes and blizzards on the surface of Valhalla. Now, their uniforms are of course made for colder climates, using heavy coats which are usually coloured for ice camouflage, and also have fur-lined hats or helmets, meaning they are regularly deployed to ice worlds or similar climates, as they are already pre-prepared for such climates. Conversely, however, they are also not at home in warmer climates, and usually find it hard to combat the enemy in conditions which we would find temperate or even hotter, thus meaning that they are quite pigeonholed as a regiment despite their combat prowess and skill. So that's everything I wanted to say in the video today. If you have a comment or a question, you can leave it in the comments section below. If you have any questions for me, you can of course send me a personal message, or go to the Vox Relay, which is the Vaults of Terra forums, which can be found linked in the description below. There you can ask the community any questions you'd like answered, or you can contact me directly. So that's everything I'd like to mention in the video today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.